What's up, YouTube? So maybe if I was asked this one, but I have to say it again. Lauryn Hill's musical influences. I'm trying to think that I've touched on her before. We know how big the miseducation of Lauryn Hill was. You remember that album in '98 was huge. The Fugees' big score was huge. She had came across a couple big records, and then she kind of vanished and went away, touring still. Cool with Wycliffe again, interesting and everything, but an interesting story. But let's get to her musical influences, which obviously on the surface of soul, we can say Sam Cooke, we can say Marvin Gaye, we can say Stevie Wonder, we can say Nina Simone, we can say Aretha Franklin. We can also say jazz, classical, rock, folk. When you do My Eyes Adored You uh, by Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons, she's obviously a pop star. She obviously had an incredible tone and nuance. So when I hear Lauryn Hill's musically, vocally, I could hear a Carole King on her. I could so hear uh, Carly Simon on her. I could so hear so many different musical flavors. Obviously, a nod to reggae with Bob Marley, because that's definitely a big place in her music. The thing about her voice is that it loaned itself to so much versatility and diversity that you just an awe of her kind of talent, because when I listen to her, you could put so many different styles and make it work with where she was coming from as an artist, and then you could feel maybe a nod to a Sarah Vaughan, if you will. It's that torch, but it's that style. She was a musical movement. Don't get it twisted, because Amy Winehouse and them owed a debt to her. A lot of them, the neo soul movement, the ones that came thereafter. Lucky for them, she wasn't into making a lot of albums and being an album-oriented artist, because as a writer and producer, and she worked with Mary J. Blige amongst others and Aretha Franklin. So her resume was stacked, you know. And let's be real, let's keep it 100. If you couldn't be Lauryn Hill, you're going to be Erica Badu. You're going to be one or the other. But Lauryn Hill was like the one that had that magical vibe that spawned off all these. I do believe without Lauryn Hill, you probably don't get Alicia Keys and you probably don't get Jill Scott with the kind of opening and everything that came about. Because I do think she was very instrumental in the stylings of everything. So, listen to her musically, obviously, the Nina Simone. And you can hear a deep throwback to the blues. You could so hear Robert Johnson's style of music, Bessie Smith. You can hear a lot of influences on Lauryn Hill. You could definitely hear a Gladys Knight influence on her tone, a nod to Patti LaBelle, maybe a nod to the Jackson Five. Because her tone loaned itself to a certain era, a certain vibe, had an old soul in there. And again, when you listen to her musically, she was very distinctive. Could have had a nod to Millie Jackson too. I mean, think about it. I mean, she sings, she rap. Obviously, Angie Stone was a nod, an influence on her. You know, Being able to balance the two and showcase a lot of versatility. You know, because she was one of those acts that you probably thought easily was going to have a 30-plus year career, albums and songs and stuff. So this is a really good hybrid, because she's really a distinctive, very distinctive hybrid artist. And that's the best way I would describe Lauryn Hill and her musical influences, because you could hear even Queen in some of her stuff. You could hear a nod to Bowie. You could hear a nod to a lot of different things if you just listen. I would, even with the Police, there's a lot of different textures. I could hear her. I could hear the Commodores an influence on her. I could hear different things that loan themselves with her vocals and time and tone with certain songs and Flag Reflections. Bill Withers too, you know. Especially the down home folks, the Johnny Taylor type of music, the Bobby Blue Bland, the BB King. You know, you could definitely hear Candy Staten. I could hear that on. I could hear that on some things that Lauryn Hill did. So I'm just putting some other acts, but you can tell with her music, and of course with Broadway and musicals, she could pull that off too. So anyway, Lauryn Hill musical influences, and let me know anyone I didn't cover. I mean, of course, Al Green, you could throw that in there. Bobby Womack, that kind of thing. Tina Turner. Could you imagine Lauryn Hill doing Nutbush City? Think about it. You know, Please like, subscribe, work on thoughts, comments, and I do respond. Thank you. Wash your hands. Keep your mind clear. Watch out for another. Share it if you like, and hit that membership. Stay safe, stay blessed, stay woke, stay free on my peace.